Hi and welcome to Fluff Up. For today's video, I needle felted King Penguin from the Mario movie. The first step is building a frame out of pipe cleaners. This project didn't need much structure, so I made it super vague and then started adding wool around it to shape the penguin. Just in case this is the first time that you see needle felting, the way it works is that the needle has spikes, and those drag the fibers of the wool, which tangle with each other as you keep poking at the wool with the needle. Once I had bulked it up with the white wool, I started adding the blue wool, so it would be the right color for the penguin. I wrapped his legs with yellow wool for the feet, being really careful not to snap the needle against the wire. I was also very careful around the arms, because it's easy to hurt your fingers while working on the thin areas. I then added a temporary beak, which will help me shape the face and calculate where to put the eyes. I actually planned on using plastic eyes and fully added them onto the head, but then he didn't look at all like King Penguin, so I decided to make my own eyes out of polymer clay. Once I had a plan for the eyes, I removed the plastic ones and went back to shaping the beak. I used orange wool to add detail to his beak. I used very small amounts of wool so that I could make really thin lines and make it more subtle. I flattened the clay and cut out the shapes for the eyes, and then added pins to the back. I baked it and sanded it, and then painted on the details with acrylics. This project was my first time working with polymer clay, so you will see me struggling with it once I get to the crown. To finish the eyes, I added dimensional Mod Podge to make them rounded. Once they dried, I opened space on the head and pushed them in. I then used wool to cover the edges and secure them onto the head. And then kept adding wool to shape his expression. It took a while, but once I was happy with the face, I went back to the body. I added more wool to his feet and finished shaping them up. I also added more shape to the back, the arms, and the belly. Then I started working on the cape. I made the fur trim in the same way that I make fur, just pushing in the wool at the middle of the fiber so that the ends stick up. And I did that over a piece of flat felt, which will be the black part of his cloak. I then sewed in gold trim to the borders, just like in the movie. I finished the cape by placing a little fastener and a button, which will hold the cape closed. And then I had to work on the crown. After trying other materials, I finally decided to use polymer clay. As I said before, this was my first time using this medium, so it took me many tries before I managed to get the crown I wanted. At first, I tried to make the crown with just clay, but it would not hold its shape, so I tried it with wire and I got to make the full crown, but it was too thick and not the right shape. So then I tried it with less wire and in gold clay. It was working at first, but the gold sheen went everywhere and I had too much clay and too little wire. So it fell apart halfway through and I decided to go back to white clay. This time I pressed the wire into a much thinner slab of clay. It was super delicate, so I had to be really careful while bending it to shape the crown. I used a stamp to press a pattern all around the surface and then baked the crown. Once the main structure of the crown was baked, I could start adding the rest of the details, which I made by using a clay extruder and then attached with liquid clay. For my last crown, I put in all the details before baking it, and that was a huge mistake because I kept having to fix everything every time the clay shifted. I think my experience with ceramics made polymer clay a little harder to work with because it was a different texture and it never dried, which I'm not used to. Besides, in ceramics, you usually add all the elements of your project before you fire it, and in polymer clay, baking it was the only way I managed to control it. Anyway, once it was all baked, I could start painting it gold, which started with a layer of black paint. The black layer just helps add some depth, and it makes it look more like metal and not like plastic. For the gold paint, I used dry brushing, which means I picked paint with the brush and then rubbed most of it off, first on a paper towel and then on a piece of flat felt. Once the brush is almost dry, I can start gently brushing it onto the crown. I did a couple layers of this gold and then used a lighter one on the spheres and the larger lines. And then I had to go see a penguin about a crown. And here is my needle felted version of King Penguin from the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I'm really happy with how he looks, even though it took me forever to finish, but it's okay because now I have a new medium to use in future projects. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you liked it and that you subscribe so you can see what I make next.